We've got the mic plugged in. We are recording. This is the 23rd, right? This is assignment F. Okay, so this is one of the things, when I started this course and I looked for a good textbook, all the introductory textbooks didn't deal with phases. They just wanted to make life simple and say, we're building a house from scratch. The reality of architecture these days is that you do a lot of addition renovation projects, and so you're going to have existing conditions and new conditions. You're going to do some demolition, and sometimes you have multiple phases of work. So up until this point, everything we've been building is the existing house that we're going to turn around and add on to. And we're going to have to do a little bit of surgical demolition on the back of the house in order to add on to it so that you can get from the old part to the new part, obviously. And we're going to have to learn about phases. Now, for those of you who've used AutoCAD, how many of you have done a project in AutoCAD that had existing and new and demolition in it? Okay, and just kind of out loud, what method did you use to kind of show the demolition? What did you use in AutoCAD to do that?
Different lines.
Different layers, different line styles, and so on. You had to set that up. You know, and if somebody in your firm had set up a template that had a bunch of demolition layers and new and existing layers, then you probably had to take lines in AutoCAD and move them to the other layer if you were going to demolish that. So AutoCAD doesn't understand butt kiss about what phase is. It just says if you give me a layer and you call it demolition, I'll put a line in it, and that's going to look like it's demolished if you do it right. Revit, the model elements themselves have a phase, and if you haven't already noticed this, let's go ahead and select one of our walls. Look in the properties palette, which is the instance properties, right, of just that one wall that we've selected. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and the last thing in there says phasing. There's a phase created and a phase demolished. So every element of our building model has those two properties, and up until now, because the views we've been using all say it's a level 1 existing architectural view or a work level 1 existing view. Whenever you're in an existing view and you build walls, Revit says those walls get created in the existing phase. And Revit assumes right out of the gate that you haven't said anything about demolishing yet, so they never get demolished. So right now, if we looked in the future, this whole house would still be there. But what we want to do is we want to demolish some stuff and then add on to it later. So there are actually fields, there are bits of information in your project that say, okay, what are the phases that we're working with here? So to get to that, let's start by looking in our Manage tab. And there's a tab that says Phasing, and there's two buttons on there. There's the Phases button. Let's do that one first, and we'll get to that fun little sledgehammer later. So we only have two phases, and this is the way Revit assumes you want to set things up. An existing phase and a new construction phase. And so if you have an existing plan, the phase is set to existing. So far I talked about how each model element has a phase created and a phase demolished. Now the other part of the equation in Revit is not just the elements themselves, but what? Like if we want to put a demolition plan on a sheet, and we want to plot that out, what do we need to have besides the walls, doors, windows, and stuff? What do we have to set up to have a plan to print out? The view. Exactly. We have to have the right view set up, and so there's view properties to deal with. So let's cancel out of this little dialog, and let's just click into our plan here. I've got the work L1 existing arch view. So the name of the view I set up for you even says existing. Well, model elements have a phase created and a phase demolished. What do views have? Well, every view, if you scroll down to the bottom again, phasing is usually almost at the very bottom. There's a phase and a phase filter. Now, I wish they listed them in reverse order because you don't want to say, okay, what's the phase and what's the filter? Phase is existing. And what a phase filter does is it says, okay, once we get to the new construction phase, we've got some old stuff and we've got some new stuff, and then we had some stuff that used to be there that we've demolished. So the phase filter is kind of like turning a lens in front of your camera to say, okay, you know, like a color filter where you filter out the red or the blue. Well, you're kind of saying, okay, I'm going to filter out the old stuff or the new stuff or the demolition stuff. And so there's a series of phase filters that are set up for you in your Revit project. And those phase filters display the model elements based on how you want to see them. So this existing plan is an existing phase, and the phase filter says show complete. What that means is I want to see the completed building at the end of the existing phase. So everything looks normal. The brick is red, the floor is yellow, the line work is black, and if I go to hidden line, then everything has black outlines. There's no colors, but it's all blacked in. The walls are hatched where the brick is, and everything looks normal. Now, if we have a new plan, which we're going to get to in a little bit, if you've done a set of documents for a project that has an addition to it or renovation work, you're probably used to saying, okay, the old stuff is either going to be grayed out or post-shaded differently or indicated differently on the plan so that when you give this to the contractor or the client for that matter, they can understand, okay, what's new and what's old in this picture. So that's where the phase filter comes in. For a new plan, the phase of that new view would be new construction. Again, going back to this list of the two phases we have right now. And then in this same dialog, there's a phase filters tab. And so these are all the different phase filters that have been set up in this template. There's a show complete, which we're using in our existing plan. Then we're going to use the show previous plus demo and the show previous plus new for our demolition plan and our new plan. Now let's say we want to show the client a presentation drawing of what the house is going to look when it's all finished, and we're not going to distinguish between old and new. We just want to show them the glorious finished product. Then we're going to set our phase filter to show complete on our new plan so that there's no overriding how the old looks versus the new looks. Now those overrides are kind of indicated in these columns. So if I'm looking at a certain phase filter, the new stuff, when it says by category, that means show it normally the way it should be based on whether it's a wall or a door or whatever. And when it says overridden, then these graphic overrides kick in. Now the nice thing is you don't have to understand and figure out how all this works. All you have to understand is I got to get the right phase filter and I got to get the right phase. And if you do that, your views are going to work for you. And then from there, the only thing that you can mess up on is, okay, I actually demolished the wrong wall. I was in the wrong view when I created my walls. So whenever you're in a view and you create a wall, Revit says that wall got created in whatever phase your view is in. So it's kind of like if you had a time machine and you went back to the existing phase, said I'm going to create a wall in that view. It's like you've ridden the time machine back to existing if you're in an existing plan and you create a wall, it says that wall gets created in the existing phase. Now you can change those properties. So if I said, okay, let's pretend this wall doesn't come along until later. So if I select that wall and I just manually go down here and say I want it to be created in the new construction phase. When I do that, the brick wall is gone. Now I'm just seeing the foundation wall below there. So if I were to change this to shaded, sure enough, the wall that I just selected, I said didn't get created until later, it doesn't show up on this existing plan anymore. I'd have to go to a new plan to see it. Now I'm going to undo that with just my undo arrow. Yeah. If you're ever in doubt, go down to the list of undoables. Not to be confused with untouchables. Okay, so that's the basics of it. Now we have to get into the nitty-gritty of how you actually do this stuff. So let's go back to...
And those
Yeah.
settings you showed on the phasing,
Uh-huh.
are those straight out of the box, Revit?
The phase filters are straight out of the box, and the existing and new, it depends on whatever template you use. So if you've installed Revit on your machine, student or regular version, and you go and you make a new project, it uses a template called default. It's going to probably have new construction as a phase. In fact, I'm just going to test that right now. If I go to new project and I browse out here and I say I'm going to pick the default template, which is pretty much the way it was given to us by Revit. Make a new project from that. Now this view that they give you out of the template says level 1. It doesn't say is that a new view or an existing view. But if I scroll down here, it says new construction. So if I go back and I look at the phases that were built into this template, there was an existing and a new construction, but they assume that you're just doing a new building somewhere. So it's already set up views for you that are new views. Why had set up the ones in our template for this class that were existing views. So that's something that when you start to do your own projects, you're going to want to set up your own templates and have all these things kind of preloaded into the template so that you don't have to start over and create all this stuff from scratch every time. So if you do a lot of two-story houses, you can make a template that has a basement, first, second floor, and roof plan, existing and new. So if you're adding on a kitchen to the back of the house, you've got your views already set up in there. Now what we're going to do is, if you go back to this phases panel, there's existing and new, and that's the way Revit intends to use it. There's only one thing that Revit doesn't quite do under this scenario, and that is, and I'll go ahead and show you the handout here. If we go to the last page, oh, it's not in this assignment. When we get to assignment K, we're going to create rooms, and then we're going to put room tags on there. So what's really going to happen if we look at this plan here, this room right here that we already have built on the back of the house, that little knob, that's the old kitchen of the house. Once we renovate and add on, this is going to become the new study, and that's going to be our new kitchen. So the old kitchen is going to change function. That room is no longer a kitchen. Well, the problem is when we get to assignment K, we want to have a demo plan that calls that out as existing kitchen, and then a new plan that calls that out as study or new study. And you can't do that in Revit with only two phases, an existing and a new. Because, and I'll explain this more when we get into assignment K, it'll make more sense then, but just to kind of put the thought in your head ahead of time, rooms are three-dimensional spaces that are part of your model, but unlike all other model elements like walls, doors, windows, floors, and all that stuff, they don't have a phase created and a phase demolished. They just have a phase. And so if you take a snapshot of the existing house or the new house, because right now we only have two phases, you can have rooms in the existing and different rooms in the new. And if you want the same room in both, you're going to have to create it in both or copy it, because a room only has one phase. What we want to be able to do is show our demolition plan, which has to be in the new phase looking back in time. So if I didn't make you create a demo phase in between, there would be no way to say old kitchen on one plan and new study on the other. So just suffice it to say for right now, I'm going to have you create another phase here. So step, okay, the first thing we're going to do is build that stair. I'm just kind of cutting to the chase on phasing. We'll go back and do the stair in a minute. Okay, so we go into phases here, and we're going to create this demolition phase in between the existing and the new. Now, we would not have to do that, and I haven't really gone into detail of explaining that in the handout, but I want you to just kind of understand the why of it. So going back to Brad's question, if you create a new project, just what comes out of the box from Revit, it's going to have an existing and a new. It's not going to have a demo phase, because you don't really need that unless you're eventually going to say, I want to show the name of the old room and the new room so that I can tell the demolition crew what room to go to tear out those walls or remove the casework. And unfortunately, Revit doesn't let you do that unless you create this interstitial phase. So, any questions about that before we dive in? So now, if you've already kind of looked ahead and full with the stair extra credit, you've learned a little bit about stairs, but I'm going to back up and I'm going to show everybody the basics of creating a stair. Why? Because on this house, and this is really how the house was, there was a stair on the back of the house here, and that's one of the things we're going to have to demolish, because this little back door into the old kitchen is going to go away, and we're just going to square that off, and we're going to walk into the new addition on the east north side of the house. So that stair is the first thing we're going to demolish. So we have to create it before we can demolish it. And if you hadn't figured this out, the way we demolish things in Revit is you find that little sledgehammer, and you click it, and then you start banging away at things. But it won't work until you have a demolition plan. But that's what it's going to do. You're going to hammer that wall, and the doors and the wall get blown away, because if you knock down the wall, the door can't sit there by itself. So that's how the demolish hammer works. Now, I wish they had a construction adhesive button so you could glue it back if you didn't want to demolish it. Yeah, liquid nails, exactly. But they don't, so that's something you have to do manually, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and do our stair first, and this is a simple stair. It's just one straight run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 risers. But fortunately, you would think Revit should be able to do math on something like this, and it can. So for those of you who haven't tried to tackle the extra credit stair yet, we're going to make ourselves, here it is, a new stair. So I'm going to pull this off to the side, and we're in our existing work plan. Now, remember how I was talking earlier about how walls are a system family. You can't load a wall type out of the library. Well, stairs also happen to be a system family. So if you go into the home button and you look for stairs here, or you scroll down in your browser, let's do that. Look past doors and down to where it says stairs. There are stair types. There's one family called stair, and under that there's the various types. Well, the stair type we want to use is called metal 7-inch riser, 11-inch tread. Well, that's not already in our project. So that's part of the reason I was kind of harping on this business of components that you load versus system families that only exist in projects. So if you can't just load a stair out of the library, how do you get a stair that I've set up for you that's not in your file? Well, what you have to do is stairs and wall types and everything can only be saved in a project. So I've got another little project out there for you that has the stair type saved into it. So, and if we all open this file at the same time, it's actually not going to be a problem. You'll probably get a message that says it's already open. You're going to have to do it read only. And we're not going to change anything in that file. We're just going to pull information out of it. So this is what you're going to go to the Manage tab, and there's a button that says Transfer Project Standards right here. Well, it's grayed out because you have to have 2 projects minimum open in order to use that tool. So let's go back and open the little project I put out there for you that has the metal stair in it. And that is on the let's see, I don't want templates, I want libraries. Yes. So you go to T, Architecture Revit Content, REC 2012, Merrimack, Libraries, U.S. Imperial, and then before you start going to the subfolders, there's the little RVT, which again is a Revit project. And I think we already used the materials one, didn't we? So we transferred in materials before. Well, this time we're going to transfer in stair types. So materials aren't really a system family. They're kind of their own little list, but we use that transfer project standards command back in assignment C for that. Now we're going to open this other little project that has stairs in it. What's that? No, because this is a project and you can't load it. So you say File Open, and you go out to the Imperial Library, and you open that little file called Project with Metal Stair Type.revit. Make sure you go to T, and then Architecture Revit Content, not S, but T. And then REC 2012, Merrimack, Libraries, U.S. Imperial, and there it is. So once you get it open, you should see a little 3D view of that stair. Now, let's close all our hidden windows so that we've only got one view of each of our 2 projects open right now. Close hidden. So now if I do a window tile or the shortcut WT, tile the windows, and ZA, now I've got 2 projects open. So, looks like you're in sketch mode.
Oh, no, I cannot.
You're already in your sketch mode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go to your green tab. And then just cancel. Okay, so is everybody with me on the 2 views?
Something just happened.
Something bad or something good?
Well, I can't get to my review.
Well, you're in the other project.
Okay.
So, do a window tile. And now if you click in this one, then you've got all your reviews. If you're in this one, whichever one is the one you're controlling.
And the WT.
Anybody else having trouble? ZA will do both windows on. And if everybody can bear with me, I have a new little shortcut thing that's a little 3-dimensional cheat sheet that you can stand on your desk that has all the keyboard shortcuts on it. It's It's like a three-dimensional roof, and I just have to kind of print them and fold them and glue them, and I'll bring those in. So,
Grade projects first.
yeah,
Then yours.
yeah, exactly. But having the shortcuts in front of you, it'll help you learn those things. Okay, so now you have to be in your project controlling yours. So again, you can see the dark blue. Right now I'm controlling that one. I want to click over into this one. Because the transfer project standards command is a pull. It's not a push. So I'm in my plan. Then I hit transfer project standards. Now if there was more than 2 projects open, I would have to pick which of the other 2 I'm pulling out of. But right now I've only got the 2, so it's going to only find the metal stair one to pull out of. And then I don't want anything but stair types, so I hit check none. That's a lot faster than unchecking all of them. Look for stairs, stair types, and say OK. So now, controlling our project, let's go down to stairs again and there it is. I've got my metal 7-inch riser, 11-inch tread stair type. So once I find that in my project, make sure I'm controlling mine still, then I can go back and close the little stair file because you don't need him anymore.
Did you drag it in? What did you say?
No, all I did was I went to this transfer project standards button
Yeah,
right here.
but when you just select it, then you can close it, right? Is that just?
Well, click into your view first. Let's check it, make sure it came in there. So there it is. So that means now in this project, you've got
Oh,
that.
you're just making sure it was there.
Right.
So now we don't.
Yeah. You just close it and you're good. Yeah. So I'm just going to go back in here. Okay, so we got the 2 projects open. We've got one view of each of the 2 projects. And we want to be controlling our project. So make sure that the dark heading is on your plan. And then you go to this Transfer Project Standards button, which is in the Manage tab. And once you click that, it says, okay, what other projects do we have open? We have the project with metal stair type. And if there was more than one other one, you get to pick here. So that's an easy mistake to make. You've been opening, let's say you had your assignment D open and your assignment F, and you open the stair and you just pulled out of the wrong one, and you say, what happened? I didn't get my stair. Well, make sure you're pulling out of the right one. And then once you got that checked, then you say, okay, all I want out of that file is the stair types. So I say check none, and just check stair types on the list. And once I hit this OK button, it's just going to pull all the stair types from that little file into my house project. And if I did it a second time, it's not going to say anything. It's already there. So it's going to say, okay, nobody's changed that stair type, so there's nothing to change. If I was to go in here and say, okay, I want to change the rules of this stair, and I want to edit that, and I want to say I want the minimum tread depth to be 1 foot. It doesn't like it, but then if I transfer it in again, just like when you load a family for the second time, it's going to say it's already there. Do you want to overwrite it? Because I've changed it in that file. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to save that. So, did that make sense? And then check and make sure that your stair type is in here. Metal 7-inch riser, 11-inch tread. Everybody got that? I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording for just a second so we have a... No. Never again will I use a credit card to get a Coke around here. Yeah. Take a collection. Yeah, would you believe at my... let me find the... where's the button here? Okay, so now we're ready to create our stair. We have the right stair type. So we go to Home, we hit the stair button, and then we select our stair type right here. So make sure you select that metal 7-inch riser and 11-inch tread. And it's important to pick the stair type before you start sketching it, because we're in sketch mode. And again, if you haven't tried the extra credit yet, there are actually 3 different modes in sketch mode for a stair. there's drawing the run of stairs, which will work for us because we're just going to draw a straight line down the center of the run of stairs, and it's going to set the width and everything. Notice in your properties palette, there is a property that says width, 3 feet. So it's defaulting to the standard residential stair width, and that's all we need for this metal stair. Now, we can actually draw the run, which is this first button up here next to the draw panel, or in the draw panel. There's boundary, which means I'm going to draw the outline of the edges of my stair. So if you had this kind of curvy or organic shaped kind of Gaudi type stair with curves in it, you could draw the boundaries, and then you can go back and draw each riser as a different line, and then you can trim them up. So you can kind of manually construct the stair in sketch mode, or you can do the run. So we're going to do the run. Question?
If you didn't select the correct stair type in the beginning and you drew your stairs, is there any way to go back and change it?
What I would do is I would either go back and undo drawing it, or you can box it all in, escape out of the mode where you've got it and just box all your lines in and delete them and then start fresh.
No.
But it's important to pick the stair type before you draw, because that stair type contains the rules that says, okay, your tread has to be at least 11 inches deep, your riser has to be no higher than 7 inches. And so that's how Revit calculates and says, okay, you've got enough risers, you can go to where you want. Now let's go ahead and set a couple more properties before we start. And this is tricky, so if you miss this part, your stair is going to go in wrong. If I just draw a stair here, it's assuming that I'm starting at the first floor and going up to the next level because I'm on a first floor plan. So I'm just going to start drawing, and this is not what you're going to do, but I'm just kind of showing for example here. Notice how it says 10 risers created, 7 remaining, 6 remaining. As I move forward, it's ticking off 1 riser at a time for me, and eventually I'm going to get to a point where it says so many risers, 0 remaining. Well, how did it figure out 16 risers? Well, it used the rules. Mouse, would you sit still? I want to let go of you. Anyway, the rules on that stair type say maximum 7-inch riser, minimum 11-inch tread. So on the treads, it's going to go ahead and assume they're exactly 11 inches. But on the risers, it's going to do the math, and it's going to say, okay, we're going from the first floor up to the next floor, which is second floor. That floor height is 9'4", I think. And so it's going to divide 112 inches by 7, and it's going to find out that that's a little bit less than such and such. So it's going to round up to the next number so that the risers are not more than 7 inches. It does that math for us, and that's how it came up with 16. Well, if we don't set our starting height to what we want, it's going to calculate based on that assumption of first floor to second floor. But we're actually building a stair that goes from the yard up to the first floor. And to further complicate it, the yard is not down at the basement, so it's not at a level, it's in between. And we're not going to stop right at the first floor because we're going to have a stoop here that's 6 inches below our first floor. So we're going to have to get a little tricky and say, we're going to start, the yard is 3'8" down from the first floor, and the landing is 6 inches down from the first floor. So if you think about how walls are defined, remember there's a starting level and a starting offset or base, and a top level and a top offset, and columns are the same way, stairs are the same way. So I'm going to escape out of that run that I started to draw here. I'm still in the sketch mode. I'm still ready to draw a run of stairs. So I scroll up here to where it says base level, first floor, base offset. We want that to be negative, I think it's 3'8". 5'8", thanks. Okay. So negative 5'8". And then the top level is not going to be second floor. It's going to be first floor, but it's going to stop 6 inches below. So we say offset negative 6 inches. So before we go any further, I want to make sure everybody gets those 4 fields typed in correctly. First floor, negative 5'8" for the base. Top level is first floor, negative 6 inches. So now when we draw a stair out here in the backyard, it's going to start at the right place, it's going to end at the right height, and then it's going to calculate out the correct number of risers that we need based on that set of rules. So now we can draw our run. Now don't try to draw it right up against the house because you're drawing the center line. And unless we had just kind of put in a reference plane that was 1'6" away from the house, what I like to do is just draw it out in space, then we'll move it into position. So I'm going to just start out in the middle of the yard here. And it says, okay, you've got 4 risers, you need 5 more. And it jumps 11 inches at a time. 7'4", which is, that's 88 inches, so that's 8 treads or 9 risers, 0 remaining. So Revit has figured out we need 9 risers to stay below the 7 inches. So if I click there, now I've got 3 different colored lines. I've got the run, which is blue, and it automatically filled in the black lines, which are the risers, and the green lines, which are the boundary. So if I wanted to change the profile of that boundary, not really profile, but the outline of it, I could come back in here and I could play with these green lines, and I could extend these. But since our stair is just your basic rectangular stair, I don't have to do that. So we're only using this button up here to draw the run. And once you've already drawn the run, you can't draw a second one because you've already satisfied the total number of risers it needs. So now, before we finish, I'm going to use my little tape measure and make sure it really did make it 3 feet wide, which it did. And I want to see, was it 7'4" long, which again is 88 inches, so I've got 11 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 treads. That means I've got 9 risers. Now, how high did the risers work out? Well, what is our rise? It's 5'8" minus 6 inches, so 5'2", that's 62 inches, right? 62 inches divided by 7 is just slightly under 6. So I'm going to have, no, that's not right. What is 63? That's 9. It's just under 9. So if I scroll down here, it's figured out the desired number of risers are 9. Desired means that's what Revit calculated you need. If you don't have that many, the stair's going to fall short. And the actual tread depth is 11, which again, if I use my tape measure, each of these is drawn at 11 inches, unless I mess around with them now. So if I escape and I select one of these and I play around with it, I could mess that up. But what Revit does is it wants to go ahead and draw them correctly for you. So now I just hit finish. There's my stair.
My top step is bigger than the rest.
Your top tread? Okay. Then just select that black riser, hover over it, and try dragging it, hover somewhere in the middle, and move to the left. And see if it'll snap to move that line. Yeah. And it's at 11 inches, so you're good. So now finish your sketch, and let's look at it in our default 3D view.
How did you finish that? I'm sorry.
I just hit the green check mark. And then I got to pull my section box out here so I can see it. So notice that this particular stair type has open risers because it's an exterior metal pan kind of stair, and it's got railings on it. So a railing is another type of Revit element. Railings are a little complicated because they're made up of balusters, posts, and rails. And you'd be surprised at all the fancy railings you can actually build in Revit. Bottom line, there's actually a sample file out there that I think I've put out on the network. If I haven't, let me put that out here for you. It's on. I think it was on the T drive.
Can you throw it in the wrong direction? Is there
You got to start all the way over again. No. Select it, and there's a flip arrow. And that flips it in the other direction. So it's going down, and it'll have a piece of text that says down. It shouldn't be. Because we haven't built our grade yet. We don't have our dirt in the backyard. So the basement is partially buried. That's why it's not going to land all the way down where the footings are. Because the footings are going to be below the soil. We haven't moved it into position yet. Yeah, and it should stop 6 inches below the door. So we're going to move it into position, then we can cut a section through there and make sure everything looks right in section. So I've got my stair, and just to show, if I flip the arrow, oops, see how the entire stair reverses direction, so that's a handy little flip. Now their stairs have this text built in with an arrow and the word down or the word up. They are very poor performing features. So normally what I do is I select my stair and I say I don't want to see the down label and down arrow and up label and up arrow. So I uncheck all 4 of those boxes. And I just put in a piece of text with an arrow that says down. And that way you can stretch the length of the arrow, you can move it around. Because the ones that are built into Revit are only going to put it where Revit wants it, and that usually is probably where you had to have a dimension string or something. Yeah, all 4 of them, because we don't want the up or down or the arrowhead pointing up or down. All you'll get is when you select it, you'll get the little blue arrow, which is a control, not a piece of text. Okay, so now, I mentioned railings. By default, this stair says, okay, I'm going to build you a rail when you build that stair. But once it's built, you can delete one of the 2 railings because, as it turns out, we're going to jam this up against the house, and we don't need a guardrail up against the house. And in fact, by code, you really only need 1 handrail. And this is an old house, so the code was even different. So we're going to select the railing, and it's probably easier to do in 3D because when you're in plan, it's hard to tell if you're looking at the stair or the top of the stringer, because the railing sits right on top of the stringer. So if you look at it in 3D and select the railing that's closest to the house, you can just delete that. Now we're ready to move our stair, and when you move the stair, that other railing will move with it, because just like doors are hosted by walls, railings are hosted by stairs, or railings can be hosted by floors as well. So if you had a balcony or an opening in the floor looking down, you could create just a railing that's hosted to that floor that will trim the edge of the opening. Now we're going to select it in plan and say I want to move this. And so I'm going to move it so that this corner right here, the southeast corner, is right there, but then I want to back it off so that we have room for this landing. So I'm just going to hit the move again. When I say from there over until I'm lining up with that corner of the house. Yeah, I actually moved it twice, and I do that sometimes because that way I can say, well, I want to move it to there, but then I want to back it up so that from that point it lands up there. Now, I want to check my handout because I may have centered it in the landing instead of...
I didn't get the little dotted line to select the corner of it.
Let me undo.
It made it so you could select the corner.
You select it, and then you hit the move button. And so the stair lights up, and you're ready. It says click to enter move start point. So you just hover over there until you get the little snap.
Why can't you just put the endpoint then, because it'll snap, it'll show you what that point of that wall is.
Even better, yeah. If you can do it all in one swoop, then that's even better. Sometimes tracking will take it exactly where you want. So I can say, okay, that dotted line down to there, that's it. Excellent.
Tracking is a standard feature.
Gold star.
In Revit, for AutoCAD, when you can switch it on and off.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of old guard AutoCAD people change the right click to be do last command, which, by the way, if you still use AutoCAD, mistake. Use spacebar to do last command because the right click gives you all kinds of creative options in AutoCAD as well as Revit. But yeah, the tracking is always on, and don't forget your little shortcut list has snaps. So if I say I want to snap to the midpoint there, so if I'm moving it from here and I don't want to hit a nearest, I want to hit the midpoint. There's an end point, there's a midpoint. So if I only want midpoints, you type SM for snap midpoints, and then it will only give you triangles. So that kind of controls the snapping, but for the most part, tracking and snapping is very good, I think, in Revit. You'll get used to it, though, because it is a little different. Now, I want to make sure that I've told you the right width, because I think this might be wider than 3 feet.
That door's 4 feet.
Well, the wall that the door is in is 4 feet, but the door itself is 3.
Right.
So I'm just looking through my handout here to see if I told you what width. But I think it needs to be 4 feet wide. Yeah. Well, and let's measure how wide it is, including the stringers, because sometimes this distance, the width, is 3'4". So, you know what? I'm just going to leave it right there. I don't really show a picture on page 1 of what it looks like after you move it in place. I have one on page 2 here that makes it look like it's just as wide, but I don't think that's right. Okay, so now we need to build, let's cut a section through there before we go any further. So remember where to find sections?
View.
Right, view, and then section, or if you like the quick access toolbar, you can just find it up on there. And it's going to be either a building section, wall section, or detail. I guess we'll call stair sections building sections. And we'll cut it through the center line of the stair, and then I'm going to flip my section looking the other way and then go to that view. And here's one thing that out of the box isn't set very well. When you cut through a stair, the line weights aren't heavier through the part that you're cutting. So this is not required in the handout because I'm just kind of cutting this section, but I want to show you how to fix that. Yeah, sir? In the plan view, when you have your section selected, look for the little double flippy arrow, and I'll flip it. Okay, so I don't like the line weights. Notice how the walls are heavy when they're cut, but the stair is not. So we want to go to, how do you think we'd change line weights of something? Visibility graphics. However, you're very close, but not quite cigar, because if we do that, what does VG do? It changes whatever view you're in right now. And really, we want to change it so any section that we cut, the stairs are going to be outlined heavy in section. So rather than going to VG for this view, we go to Manage Object Styles. And this is kind of like the VG dialog without the checkboxes, because this says, okay, anywhere you see a stair, unless somebody went in and changed it with VG in a certain view, stairs are going to look like this. So we go down to Stairs, and notice how it says on the row where it says stairs, there's a projection line and a cut line. They're both line weight 1. And if you go down to walls, when you cut through a wall, it's line weight 5. You look beyond, it's line weight 2. So let's change the cut line of stairs to a line weight 4. And say OK. So now you can tell you're cutting through the treads of that stair. In the Manage Object Styles, you go down to the row where it says stairs, and you go straight across. You don't do anything with the subcategories of stairs. You just go right on that line right there. No, because VG is just settings on the one view you're in. Object Styles does it for the entire project. And that's, so if we were to cut another section through our other stair or another section through this stair, we always want stairs to look line weight 4 when we cut through it. You go to the Manage tab. So it doesn't matter what view you're in for this, because irrespective of the view, we want stairs to look heavy. So you go to Manage and you look for this Object Styles button on the far left. So that's a good thing. I don't know if I've gone into much detail about Object Styles, but I want you to understand that concept, because if there's anything that you have to tweak that you want to change in all your views, that's the place to do it. Otherwise, you got to go into VG every time you cut a new section, because the next section isn't going to show them heavy like the first section did.
So when you change stairs?
Stairs on this row that the stairs is on, not any of the subcategories, just that actual row. Go over to where, again, these columns say line weight, projection, or cut. So the lines that we're cutting through the stair, we want to be a line weight 4. The edges of the stair that are projected in the distance, we want to leave as a line weight 1. So therefore, these lines here are line weight 4, and those edges of the stringer beyond are line weight 1. Yeah. So you got 1 and 4 for stairs. And notice how there's line pattern and line color and material. So we'll talk more when we get into building our countertop, how you can have a default material for a certain category of stuff.
Show the line weights as getting in thickness.
You might have your thin lines button turned on. Yeah, so make sure, and that's a TL. That's a shortcut I don't use, but it's a good one to know. Yeah, if you hover over it, it'll tell you the actual keyboard shortcut, but it's also up there. It's normally in the View tab, but I always go up here for it. So again, I only use that thin lines button sparingly because I like to be able to see the line weights in general. So now if we run a dimension string from our level, first floor, down to the top of the first tread, and then we go down to, well, let's go down to the basement level. Okay, I got something weird going on here. It says 1 foot 0 and 7/8, but my stair said I'm ending at negative 6 inches. Okay, so we still have something to resolve here. I'm in my section view and I measured from the, well really I care about measuring down from the first floor. So if I measure down, the thing that's weird about this stair is there are no risers. So you're only seeing treads, and so the last riser is just kind of a leftover. So what we actually need to do is select that stair, and if we edit the type, there is a choice here that says begin with riser, end with riser.
My wall is doing, it doesn't look like yours, they're connected up to the top, so it makes a 90-degree.
So your wall's coming all the way up. Yeah, I think my wall there looks, we need to put the landing in there. So the landing is negative 6 inches, and then we've got another riser below the landing. So that's how that adds up, yeah. Bill, you hit the nail on the head. We've got 6 inches, and then we've got a riser. So the 6 inches of the landing plus the first riser gives us the 1 foot on 7/8. So we're actually good. And I was thinking, what is wrong with this picture? Because I've never had to fix that before. So if you edit the stair type, I just wanted you to see that there's a choice of either starting with a riser or ending with a riser or a tread. If you say begin and end with riser, then the bottom of the stair isn't there. It's actually down here where that stringer kind of buries itself. So there's 4 foot 7 and 1/8, but that's not really to the top of the stair. That's to the second to last point on the treads, because there's no riser to look at. So let's go back to our plan, work level 1, and we need to put that little 4-inch concrete slab of a landing in there. So what should that landing be? Floor. Right. So let's go to home, let's hit floor, and then we select a concrete slab 4-inch, same thing we used in the basement. Now, we have to make sure this floor is not at the first level, but it's down 6 inches. So who can tell me how to put this floor so that it's actually down 6 inches?
Offset from the height.
Over here in our properties palette, exactly. Height offset from level, and the level is first floor, so I want negative 6 inches. Whatever you do, don't do 0 minus 6 like that, because it thinks that's just 6 inches. If you're going to do 0 in space and 6, you have to do minus 0 space 6, or just minus 6 with an inch sign. So now I can do my sketch, and I'm going to use pick walls wherever possible. Remember, when you're drawing a floor, use pick walls everywhere you can, and when there's not a wall, then you use the draw lines or you use the pick lines. So I'm going to do pick walls on 3 sides, that wall, and that wall. Then I have to do draw lines. I'm just going to snap from that corner to there. Escape from the draw lines. Then I use my trim, TR. So I'm just trimming up a nice little square there, 4 foot by 4 foot landing. And when I finish that, now this is a question I want to say no to, because I don't want to mess up any of my walls below there. So that's a Nancy Reagan question, just say no.
Mine won't continue because it's doing.
Orange crap, okay.
I think it's because on my wall.
Let me just pause the recording here for a second. Okay. See how my foundation wall, if I go to fine level of detail, my foundation wall isn't going up to the floor level. Really, this interior floor should come out and sit on the foundation probably, or the foundation should go up at that point. So there's a couple different ways we could actually solve that. One would be to chop that wall into 2 pieces so the part at the door comes out, or we could just grab our floor here and at the boundary of the floor, And really, to make this look right, we should just, oops, I'm just going to draw the floor.
Is that the continuum slab?
Yeah. And then I'm going to split, remember the split button? And then I'm going to trim. You don't have to do this, I'm not going to count off if you don't, but it's going to make it look correct.
There you go.
That's the first floor. So now if I select that wall and I attach top base to the underside of this floor, why does it not want to do that? Well, instead of attach top base, I'll just set the top to be -1 foot. So now if I go to my section view, yeah, you know what, I'm going to just drag it up there. So it's actually -10 3/4 of an inch. Now, this is a real kind of nitpicky detail, but in order to get the section to look right, and I'm not even requiring you to cut this section, I just wanted to show you how you could check your stair and make sure everything works. So if I actually delete that witness line, I've got 5'8" from the bottom of the stair to the floor level. And that last one is 6 inches, so 5'2" and 6 inches. So if you take 62 inches and you divide by 9, that's a little bit under 7 inches per riser. If you select the stair, it'll tell you the actual riser height is 6 and 57/64. And you can't change that. It's grayed out because that is set based on how many risers you have. Revit is going to make those risers equal. So we really need to move on to the demolition and the new. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. We'll take a break here. Stop, and I'm going to burn that. So this is session 6? In phase concepts.